Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you at this first inaugural masterclass to explore the joy of books, the busy person's guide to reading for pleasure and mental wellness. It's great to have you along, wherever you are in the world. Maybe you'd like to just put a note in the chat to tell me where you're from. I would imagine at this time of day there'll be a few people from North America, maybe Canada, USA. That would be great to have you along and to make sure that the comments are working. If you want to add questions into the text, into the comments on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or on YouTube, you're very welcome to do so, and I'll take questions at the end of this session. First of all, I'm Christopher Norris. I'm the pioneer of World Book Day in the UK, which happened in 1995-96. I persuaded the UK book trade to celebrate World Book Day, World Book and Copyright Day, which is celebrated around the world today on the 23rd of April. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. And I'm also the founder of a company called Bibliophile, CIC. That's a not-for-profit company which celebrates and promotes the Icelandic tradition of Bibliophile, which in English translates as the Christmas book flood. And again, I'll talk more about that later in the talk. Also, the fact that World Book and Copyright Day is today, the 23rd of April, is because of a celebration that happens in the Catalan city of Barcelona. It's St. George's Day, St. Geordie Festival. And again, I'll talk more about that later on in the presentation. If you're yet to take the quiz to find out what kind of book reader you are, you'll notice that there's a banner going across the bottom of the screen with a link, so that at any point during the presentation you can take the quiz, or you can click on the link which is in the comment, either in LinkedIn as a comment, in YouTube as a comment, or at Facebook as a comment. So let's carry on. So this is what's going to be covered in the presentation. We're going to look at the reading personality that you came up with if you actually have taken the quiz already. And there are 4 different types. These types we'll go into in more detail, but just to give you a foreshadow, they're casual reader, literary connoisseur, bibliophile, or book dragon. And then we're going to go on to issues like you may well want to read more for pleasure, but you find maybe you don't have time. What's holding you back? And then later on, we'll talk about the benefits and the results, about how, when you do read for pleasure more, how that can change your life for the better. And then we'll come up with some solutions for how you can maybe integrate reading for pleasure more into your life, even at times when you don't traditionally read, maybe at Christmas or on your summer holiday. And then lastly, there are some calls to action about how you can get involved to tell more people about reading for pleasure more than they currently do. So here are the 4 types. As I mentioned before, we've got the casual reader, the literary connoisseur, the bibliophile, and the book dragon. So if you've already taken the quiz, maybe you can drop the type of reader that you are in the quiz. That will be really helpful to see what kind of behavior you have, or what kind of lifestyle you have when it comes to reading. So these are the different kinds of personas. So you can see that a casual reader is somebody that maybe only because of their busy lifestyle, they only maybe get to read occasionally, maybe when they're about to go to sleep in bed, and they're what would be described as a light reader. So these are people who don't get to read loads and loads of books every year. And then if you find that you're integrating books a bit more into your life, then you might be described as a literary connoisseur. These are people who make a point of reading the classics, maybe, or read in a more reflective way at more determined times of the day, so that you're actually making a conscious effort to read more. And then the next level up is a bibliophile, and these are collectors of books. They would describe themselves as book lovers and find all sorts of occasions when they might want to read. And then last of all, these are the obsessive readers. These are the people for whom reading is a lifestyle. Books are something that they really do see as an integral part of their lives. They're highly analytical and they devour books, and that's why they're called a book dragon in the categories that I've created. So if you haven't already taken the quiz, then I'm going to let you, for a minute or two, click on the link and take the quiz, and then we'll carry on, and I'll describe in a bit more detail what all these different personas are. So I'm going to give you some time to do that, and then I'll come back to the presentation. I'm going to give you about a minute because it shouldn't take you too long. And while you're doing that, I will start to explain what all these personas are in more detail. So here is the casual reader. These are people, as I say, who read books, but it's just one of the hobbies that you have in your life. You might pick up a book on vacation. You might choose on a wet day or a cozy evening, to occasionally pick up a book as a lifestyle choice, but you wouldn't really describe that as a habit that you have every time you feel as though you want something to do as a leisure activity. You often pick up books as recommendations. Maybe they're a bestseller, maybe it's a recommendation that somebody's talked about, or maybe you've noticed a book in a bookshop and the covers kind of caught your attention. You like talking about books, but when they come up, but you don't actively seek out conversations related to books. And as you can see, these are, there's a whole chart here of things that you can take a screenshot of this if you like, if you self-identify as somebody who's a casual reader. So the kinds of things that you like are maybe books that are in the news. Maybe there's a kind of meme, there's a trend, maybe you pick something up on TikTok or whatever, and you kind of feel as though you want to be part of the zeitgeist. Your bookshelf, you might not have that many books, but it's kind of the books that you do have are kind of books that have made an impression on you. So they're things that you might remember having read as a kid, or maybe they're books that have a special meaning for you. You're not in a particular rush to finish books, but you just read at your own pace. The kind of books that you like fiction, you like thrillers, you like memoirs. You prefer reading as physical books, but you're open to other kinds of books in audio book form if you feel like you want to listen to an audio book on the go. You often, as I say, pick up ideas from TikTok or from friends, and you might typically read a book while you're waiting for somebody in a coffee shop or maybe in the park. It might take you a long time to read a book, because you're not in any particular rush to finish it. You don't really get involved in book clubs or other sort of casual discussions with people. Yeah, you're not somebody that is kind of going to tell the world about your reading. If you've enjoyed a book, but you might pick up a book that's been recommended by somebody like Reese Witherspoon. He's a celebrity that has a book club. You might want to read more, but you find that it's difficult to find the time to do so. And sometimes you lose interest in a book if it's not really engaging your attention. But you're more likely to read if you're, the people in your friendship group are also reading the same book. So maybe you think of yourself as a casual reader. Next level up is the literary connoisseur. These people are people who appreciate literature in terms of its art form, maybe as a kind of because they feel they have to, because it's seen as a classic or something that's part of the canon, the literary canon. You like reading books that have won prizes. Again, to say that maybe you've read the book that's won the Booker Prize or the Pulitzer Prize, or that kind of thing. And you have a bookshelf that's been like carefully curated. You've kind of made an effort to only read books or choose books to read that are defined by a particular genre that you like, or maybe an era that you like, or maybe you're into, I don't know, Russian classical literature or whatever. And so you have a completist attitude to that, where you will choose to read books that are that fit into a particular category that you feel like you need to read because it fits your persona. You read with intention. You often reflect on other aspects, like, for example, you might be interested in history, so you like to read books that reflect or novels that reflect that period in history. You like modern books, but you're also looking out for classics, as I say, and you're looking for the craft and the art of the writing, the style. And you like books that challenge you intellectually or emotionally, rather than just for light entertainment. So the kind of things you like literary fiction, you like historical fiction, you like philosophy, poetry, memoirs, and you often engage in conversations with people. Maybe you join a book club, maybe you write book reviews and essays for academic journals. Maybe you go to author events. Maybe you for a favorite author, you might get the book signed, that kind of thing. But you find that finding the right kind of books can be difficult. Oops, I've moved on. It could be difficult to find the right kind of books that you want to engage with. You often find work commitments is difficult to find the time to read as much as you want to. But you do like discussing books with people, but you find it hard to connect. Yeah, you read extensively. Maybe you might want to check out other related books that aren't quite as well known. You can get involved with events with like-minded people, but challenge yourself to read something that is slightly off-piste. So next level up, these are the bibliophiles. The bibliophiles are people who collect books. They love books, and they love the ownership of the artifacts. They have a growing to be read list. These are piles of books that you haven't yet got round to, but it never seems to shrink. You're always kind of adding to the list. You feel like you're living in a bookshop. You recommend books to friends, and you maybe even keep a reading journal of the stuff that you've read. Your dream is to have your own library filled with stories from every single genre that you enjoy reading. You read voraciously. You read all sorts of different books, fiction, non-fiction. You like sort of writing in the margins and maybe keeping a note of how you feel about certain books in a journal. You might have lots of different editions of a book because you like the different covers, or you like the completist, style. If you've got a particular favorite author, you might like to have multiple books by the same author. So in terms of how do you engage with books, you're in book clubs online, perhaps in person, and you're following different people on social media, on Book Talk, on BookTube, and maybe even literally Instagram accounts. You also reread your favorite books. Because you feel like a book that you've enjoyed deserves to be reread at different times in your life. And you buy more books than you can actually read. It's not like a functional thing. It's actually you desire to have the books as an object. Yeah, you're kind of always kind of trying to find new books before they become famous, so that you can talk about them with other people. And so the final category is the book dragon. These are people who are obsessive about their books, in whatever format it happens to be. They can't stop buying books. It's almost like an addiction. You're kind of overflowing with books, and they come out of they're piling up on the carpet, not even on your bookshelf. You like literary conversations, literary analysis, and you've often got lots of books that you're reading at the same time, and you are quite obsessive about analyzing your the metrics of your reading goals, so that you've got like spreadsheets and things which keep a note of how far you've got in a particular genre with your your reading life. It's something that you take very seriously. Kind of things that you like, quite often you're maybe into science fiction or historical fiction. You're dystopias, often quite kind of nerdy subjects, if you like. You often prefer physical books over ebooks and audio books, because you can you like the smell and the touch and the feel, but you're not averse to kind of other formats as well. And you have a home library, and you kind of almost live in independent bookshops and cafes, because you connect the lifestyle with the fact that you're reading books. You often reread your multiple your favorite books multiple times. You're passionate about having conversations with other people about books, and you enjoy multi-book series. So that often happens in science fiction, for example. You've got many more books that you can ever get around to reading. You do read non-fiction, but especially when it's kind of meaty themes and things that you can really get your teeth into. You like finding like-minded people to discuss the books with, but you might want to check out sort of books that are off the beaten track. Hunt for kind of rare books, and maybe sort of surprise yourself in terms of trying out something new. And maybe as an action point, you could impose a limit to the number of books that you're actually buying, so that you can at least have a chance of getting through your reading list. So here are the problems. We've discussed, the personas, and here are some sort of things that people in these different personas actually find difficult. So, for example, if you're a casual reader but you actually want to read, you often find that you don't have time, or you lack motivation. If you're a literary connoisseur, you feel that you're, fairly maybe a bit isolated, and you'd like the opportunity to read in community with other people, and maybe challenge yourself a bit to kind of get out of your rut in terms of what you'd like to what you find yourself reading. A bibliophile might find their to be read pile is kind of overwhelming, and they feel like they've never got enough time to read everything, and that they also feel as though they don't have time to read as much as they'd like to. And the book dragon, in terms of the challenges that they face, they quite often, they have to balance in the other direction, where they find that they're reading obsessively, and they maybe want to find deeper engagement with other people in terms of sharing their enthusiasms, and perhaps being a bit more social when it comes to sharing their preferences and their favorites. So if you've got any reading challenges that you have, then please do share them in the chat, and I'll come to them towards the end. So here's an interesting photograph that was at a trade fair that I spotted. The stand is saying that that you may think that you don't have enough time to read, but if you look at the icons at the bottom of each of these columns, there's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and I can't make out the other one, TikTok probably. The number of books in each of those columns is showing you the number of books that you could read in a year if you didn't actually engage with those social media platforms. So you can see that one of the things that we often struggle with in terms of the time that we have is that we choose to spend our time doing other things, maybe engaging with social media rather than reading books. So one of the things that you can do if you want to read more is to actually put the phone down and pick up a book. So here are some traditions, some book traditions that are relevant to today and relevant to World Book and Copyright Day that you may not be aware of. So as I say, today is World Book and Copyright Day, the 23rd of April every year. It's a UNESCO Awareness Day. And the reason it happens on the 23rd of April is that it's at the anniversary of lots of people who are kind of global, global celebrities, if you like, in the book publishing world and in the author's world. So, for example, William Shakespeare is supposed to have been born and died on the 23rd of April, which is why today is also World Shakespeare Day. And then a guy called Cervantes, who is the national writer of Spain and is famous for writing Don Quixote. He also has an anniversary on the 23rd of April, as does Vladimir Nabokov, the Russian-American writer who wrote Lolita. And another famous writer who has an anniversary on the 23rd of April is a guy called Halldór Laxness, who is was an Icelandic writer who won the Nobel Prize for Literature back in 1958. So all these people are being celebrated. So and the reason that today is seen as being World Book Day or World Book and Copyright Day is that it also is the patron saint of Catalonia and of England, but more primarily in terms of why World Book Day is celebrated. Today is St. George's Festival, Sant Jordi's Festival in Barcelona, in the Catalan region. And every year at St. George's Festival, St. George is the patron saint, as I say, of Catalonia. So on the 23rd of April, everybody in Barcelona gets roses and books. So it's kind of a version of St. Valentine's Day that we might celebrate in the UK or in America or Canada. So the reason that that celebration is mentioned here is that the man who was the Secretary General of UNESCO in the beginning of the 1990s had the surname Saramanch. And Mr. Saramanch was from Barcelona, and he was keen to see a UNESCO Awareness Day on the 23rd of April, given all these different celebrations around other famous, world famous writers, that he wanted UNESCO to celebrate St. George's Festival as World Book and Copyright Day. My contribution to all of this was in the mid-1990s, I persuaded the UK book trade to celebrate World Book and Copyright Day, but instead of actually celebrating it on the 23rd of April, in the UK, it's always celebrated as World Book Day as an event for children, and it takes place on the first Tuesday of March every year. And the reason for that is that the way that Easter is worked out every year is that it moves around in March and April, so you can't guarantee that children are going to be in school unless you have the event in early March. And one of the features of World Book Day in the UK is that children are invited and encouraged to dress up as their favourite literary character. So a character from a book, they often get dressed up. So you'll see in the picture, there are some children who got dressed up in different costumes. And lastly, the other thing that I'm involved with promoting is the idea of the Christmas Book Flood, which is the Icelandic festival of Bibliophile. And what they do at Bibliophile is that in Iceland, they don't really have many trees. So they import all the paper and they publish all their books in one go, and then create a paper catalogue that gets sent in the post to everybody in Iceland so they can decide which books they want to read for Christmas. And then there's a big conversation that goes on in Iceland. And then Christmas Eve comes, which is when, that they exchange gifts. And because they've been talking about the books, books are a big part of the Christmas gifting that goes on. And then they have their Christmas meal on Christmas Eve in the evening. Then they hand out the presents and they spend the rest of the evening reading their book that they've received, or books that they've received. And then later on in the Christmas season, people will then ask each other how they're getting on with their new books. And you'll notice the picture in the top right-hand corner says Boka Dindi, which translates as Book Bulletin. And that is the front cover of last year's paper catalogue that got sent to everybody in the country. And the catalogue itself contains all 800 or so new titles that are published in Icelandic that year. And the reason it's called Christmas Book Flood is that because Icelandic is only spoken by about 500,000 people globally as a native language, then if it's published, or if a book gets published, it's only ever really going to see a first run of about 7,000 or 8,000 copies. And if you sell, say 8,000 copies, you're actually doing quite well. So if you don't buy a book in the Icelandic language in any given year, then the likelihood of it being around next year is pretty low. And so that's why it's called Christmas Book Flood, because all the books come in on a tidal wave every year. The tide goes out, and then next year it's a whole pile of new books. So there we go. Those are the reasons why people celebrate the 23rd of April as a global celebration of books. So what are the benefits and the results of choosing to read for pleasure more than you currently do? So it's a kind of whole person, sort of whole wellness issue. But from a mental point of view, you find that if you read more, you're more focused. You find that you're less stressed, and you find that it actually improves your thinking skills. That you've got more ideas. Your imagination is kind of improved, and you can hold, more interesting conversations with your friends and with your peers. On the spiritual level, you your as I say, your imagination has improved, so it means that you can find meaning in what's going on in life. I guess one of the reasons for us, for living a life is to find out more about who you are as a person and what your purpose is. So books can help you do that, even if it's fiction, because you're finding that you can actually see inside somebody else's head. It's the only way, it's the only medium that allows you to do that. You can see people's inner lives and how they approach the way that they live their lives. So that means that you can reflect on how you, live your own life, and maybe take some decisions about how you might do things differently. It also helps you to find meaning and purpose in your life, and it allows you to grow as a person, and set yourself some objectives about where you'd like to get to, and then you maybe choose the reading that you do in order to help you get to where you want to be. And then from a physical point of view, books are a form of entertainment. They are a way of relaxing. They can improve your sleep quality because a book will take your focus off yourself. And because, let's say, if you're reading a print book, you're not looking at a screen. And, the advice is often that if you're watching television, for example, that you switch the television off maybe an hour or two before you go to sleep, so that your brain isn't kind of active from the rays that are, the cathode ray tube that's kind of beaming out at you. It's a way of causing strain, eye strain in particular. So if you're reading print, then you don't have that problem, and it's and reading and using your imagination are good ways of calming yourself down. So reading, as I say, is a good activity in terms of your mental wellness, your spiritual wellness, and your physical health. You get benefits and results from reading more if you can, both personally and professionally. So here are the benefits that you can get from each of the different archetypes. So if you're a casual reader, you can start to think about building a habit and taking joy in that habit. If you're a literary connoisseur, you can find deeper meaning in the books that you're reading, rather than just seeing it as an academic exercise to feel like you're reading you're collecting books, reading the classics, for example. You actually find ways of applying what you're reading to your own life. A bibliophile, maybe you can think more about how you decide what to read or which books to buy, and that you've got more intention and purpose about how you do that. And then a book dragon, maybe you can, reading can help you explore, knowledge, and maybe seek out social engagement, so that you can share what you know with other people and then learn from them, using the books as a medium to do that. So here are some solutions to help you, get to read more. Maybe set yourself, some tasks or some calls to action to help you read more than you currently do. So if you're a casual reader, maybe set yourself the challenge of reading a book a month. Especially in a genre or a style or a particular author that you find that you like reading, or maybe you have a favorite author. If you're a literary connoisseur, maybe you can join a book club. Maybe that would give you a bit more sense of purpose, feeling like you were with other people who shared your interests. If you're a bibliophile, maybe you can use your reading journals to explore your reading and set yourself goals according to particular themes, or to stretch your horizons by trying to read new things, or taking on new styles, maybe authors from another country, maybe books that have been translated from another language, so that you're getting a feel of how other people live in other parts of the world. That could be a good thing for you to do. And if you're a book dragon, then maybe, try out different formats, try audiobooks, try ebooks, and maybe track your progress, and maybe think about getting into more social situations where you can chat to people about what you're reading. So this is a call to action if you would like to do so. As the founder of Bibliophile, I have a digital version of the paper catalogue that is sent out to people in Iceland. The way that the catalogue is organized in Iceland is that you have different categories according to the books that people enjoy. So, for example, there's a large section in the Icelandic catalogue of photography books, because people like taking photographs, understandably, because Iceland's such a beautiful country. So therefore, my catalogue, which is a digital catalogue, has the same categories. So, for example, you will notice in my digital catalogue, there is a section for photography books. Now, clearly, in English, there are something like 120,000 new titles that are published every year. And so it's going to be impossible to include every single title that is published every year. So I don't even attempt to do that. And my digital catalogue for Bibliophile is a selection of books which are the recommendations of people like you, people who are book readers in any book persona. And what I do is I collect people's recommendations, and you can send me your recommendations by using the QR code that you'll see at the bottom of the screen, which will take you to a Google form where you can fill out your name and your details, and then the title of the book, the author's name, and a reason why you love the book, and also some idea of why the book has made an impact in your life. Now, in return for that information, I then, when I'm including the book in the catalogue, I would include, a bit like an Amazon profile for a book. You'd see the cover of the book, you'd see the synopsis, you'd see the name of the author and the title of the book. But on top of that, I will actually include reference to you and the fact that it's your recommendation with your name, and then I will talk about some aspect of your life. Maybe it's you've written a book yourself, or maybe you have a passionate hobby, or maybe you have a job, or maybe you're running a program, or you have a career, you're an entrepreneur, anything like that. I will then share that information as though it was like a classified ad, so that you're not only getting the opportunity to share your reading preferences, but also to share something about yourself which can be advertised. And then you can then, maybe take a screenshot of that once it's done, and then share that around your networks to encourage other people to send their book recommendations. And the idea is that over time, especially in the run up to Christmas, then we'll fill up this digital catalogue, and then it'll be a resource that people can use when they're actually doing their Christmas shopping. So you can join the Bibliophile movement by signing up to this webinar, then you'll signing up initially anyway, to unless you choose to unsubscribe, you'll get a regular newsletter. And then you can choose to become a Reading for Pleasure ambassador by inviting 3 friends to fill out the recommendation form, as I've already explained, so that you can get your recommendation into the Book Bulletin catalogue. And then maybe start to think about promoting reading or your love of reading in your personal and professional networks. Maybe talk about a book that you've read that you've really enjoyed, according to how you feel about reading in your own life. So even if you're maybe a casual reader, you might really have enjoyed a book, and then just get into the habit of talking about what you're reading. And then maybe in social media posts, you can promote Bibliophile by using the hashtag Bibliophile. So in summary, there's the QR code again. You can take a photograph of that, and then that will take you to the Google form. So think about what book you might want to read next, and then maybe drop that in the chat. Thanks so much for coming along to celebrate with me the World Book and Copyright Day. And don't forget to scan the QR code and keep reading and sort of sharing your love of books with other people to try and encourage people to read. The problem, of course, when we become adults is that we start off with a love of books when we're children, but then as we're going through school, then books become more and more like a chore, because they're things that we have to engage with in order to pass exams or to pass tests. They become hard work. And then we go to college or university, and then books, continue to be things that we need to engage with for the work that we're doing. So it becomes less of a pleasure and a leisure activity, and more of something that we do when we're working. And then we leave college, and then we start on our lives. Maybe we're in a relationship, maybe we start to think about buying a house, or maybe we have a job, and so life becomes really busy. So we kind of get disconnected with the love of books that we had when we were children. And so my ambition with this campaign with Bibliophile is to re-engage people with the love of books that they had when they were growing up. So if anybody has any questions, please do put them in the chat. I've noticed I have a comment from Valerie, who's in the chat, who says that she finds reading to be a very pleasant escape. She likes, so her favourites are fantasy and science fiction, and she likes novels that have tension, mystery, and suspense. But she doesn't like books that are frightening, have lots of gore, or have messages that give her nightmares. And I guess that might be because she tends to read before she goes to bed, so she doesn't want to kind of brainwash herself into having books, dreams about nasty things, and Valerie also says that she's a casual reader. So, as I say, please do drop any comments into the chat if you have them. I'm not sure that we have that many people on the live broadcast, so maybe what I'm going to do is to say thank you so much for choosing to spend the time with me today in finding out about your different book persona. If you haven't taken the quiz, then do go and take the quiz now. And if you want to see a recording of this, it'll be available straight after the live session finishes, and there'll be other opportunities for people to engage with live masterclasses like this. There's another one on Saturday to celebrate World Intellectual Property Day, and that is going to be live in the morning in the UK. So there's an opportunity for people who are on the other side of the world in Australia and New Zealand to come along if they want to, and in places like India and Asia. Obviously, people in Europe can come to that event as well in terms of the time zones. And my idea is to have regular sessions like this that are opportunities for people to engage in live conversation, maybe with challenges, maybe with filling out the quiz and dropping in their recommendations. So I want to do maybe 2 such events every month, so that we can build up towards Christmas and make sure that the book bulletin is full of books by the time that people come to buy their Christmas presents. So thank you so much for coming, and I look forward to answering any further comments that you have that you can drop in the comments either on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or on YouTube. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye-bye, and enjoy the rest of your day.